Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Intentional Grounding. I am your host, the Wild Irishman. Well, we are now heading towards the final stretch in the college football season, as we are only 2 short weeks away from Conference Championship Week. But before we get there, we got some games that may determine who goes to the Conference Championships this year in college football. But we will begin on Friday. Tonight, rather. Number 25, Louisiana takes on Appalachian State. Louisiana already having punched their ticket to the Sun Belt Championship game, as they will face Coastal Carolina. Yet App State is favored in this matchup by 3 points against the Raging Cajuns. Now, I've always been a fan of Louisiana. I've always rooted for them. I've always had a spot in my heart for them. But I think the Mountaineers will dominate this game. Appalachian State has something to prove. They were just unintentionally pulled out of being in contention for the Sun Belt Championship. They had a chance. They had a chance, if everything went their way, to pass up Coastal Carolina and go to the Sun Belt Championship. Unfortunately, Coastal Carolina had one of their games rescheduled and is now playing BYU this week, meaning there is no path for App State to get to the championship game, and Coastal Carolina has clinched. App State's going to come out angry. They're going to dominate this game against Louisiana. I'm going to take the Mountaineers 37-27. On to Saturday, where I'm going to throw in a quick pick between Penn State and Rutgers, two teams that are at the bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten. Didn't expect Penn State to have the year they had, but nothing has gone their way. I'll take the Nittany Lions to win their second straight and their second game of the season to improve to 2-5 off of the arm of Sean Clifford. And they will take down Rutgers with a final score of 38-34. Speaking of the Big Ten, we have an interesting scenario happening with Ohio State. They have 2 games remaining. They are sitting at 4-0, ranked number 4 in the country. But the rules of the Big Ten state that in order to be eligible for the Big Ten championship game, you must play at least 6 games. With what has happened with Ohio State and COVID this season, there is a chance Ohio State may not get to 6 games. They play Michigan State this weekend, which is a go, and I believe Ohio State will dominate this game, even though Ryan Day will not be on the sidelines. But next week is a question mark. They are supposed to play Michigan next week. Michigan canceled their game this week because Michigan themselves had an outbreak. There is a good chance that Michigan will not be able to play next week and Ohio State will not be eligible for the Big Ten championship, meaning that Indiana will take that spot in the Big Ten East and will play I believe it's up Northwestern now. I believe Northwestern has already clinched their spot. I'm not 100% certain. Let me just look that up here real quick, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, and we're back. So, yes, I was correct. Northwestern has already clinched the spot in the Big Ten West, and now it is down to Ohio State and Indiana in the East. Now, granted, there is still a chance that Indiana could win that spot outright, even if Ohio State does play 6 games. Ohio State would just have to lose both of their remaining games, but I don't see that happening at all. So once again, Ohio State will dominate this week against Michigan State, and who knows about next week. That game is a big question mark against Michigan. I love to watch that game. That game's always fun, even though Ohio State has dominated the rivalry. But it's always fun to watch with the spirit that goes into it. We now move from number 4 to number 5 as Texas A&M goes on the road to take on Auburn in what could be a trap game. Bo Nix has not looked like the quarterback we thought he was going to be. Auburn, this has just not been their year. They got steamrolled by Alabama last week. Texas A&M had a close and sloppy game against LSU last week. Both of these teams have something to prove. This could be a trap for A&M, and this game could entail whether or not they will remain in playoff contention. And honestly, I will take Auburn to win this game. I know that's a surprise, but I think the upset will indeed happen. I believe Auburn's defense will be able to put a lot of pressure on Kellen Mond, and as we saw last week, Kellen Mond does not perform well under pressure. Isaiah Spiller will be stopped coming out of the backfield, and Auburn will go off, winning this game 32-28 over 5th-ranked Texas A&M, knocking them out of playoff contention. Oklahoma State takes on TCU in what has become the wild Big 12. Oklahoma State, I believe, still has a shot at the Big 12 championship game. They just need Oklahoma and Iowa State to both lose out and for them to win out. They take on a tough opponent in TCU, who can be great some weeks and terrible other weeks. But I like Oklahoma State to go to Fort Worth, and for Chuba Hubbard specifically, to run all over TCU's defense. I don't think this game will be close. It won't be as close of a game, as bad of a shootout as Oklahoma State had last week against Texas Tech. But I will take the Cowboys to win 45-27 over the Horned Frogs. Quick pick in the MAC. Winless Bowling Green versus winless Akron. I will take Akron, led by Zach Gibson, to win that game. I just thought, I saw both 0-4s, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to pick this game to see who gets their first win. So Akron will win this game by a field goal. Number 6, Florida, travels to Knoxville to take on Tennessee in what looks to be a one-sided affair, led by Heisman candidate Kyle Trask. But I believe the Gators will have some trouble here. I believe this is the week where we could see a lot of possible upsets. Tennessee is known for pulling off some good upsets when they have down years. But I don't think that's going to happen. Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, that combo is deadly. Florida will further prove themselves to be contenders for the SEC and will go in preparing to play Alabama in the SEC championship game and will possibly make a statement for the college football playoff, sitting right now at number 6 on the outside looking in. The Gators have a great shot to get into the playoffs this year. Iowa State, number 9, hosts West Virginia in what will be a clinching game for the Cyclones. With a win, Iowa State will clinch their spot in the Big 12 championship. They will clinch with either a win or an Oklahoma loss. I don't think that this game will be remotely close. It is Iowa State's game to lose, however. West Virginia does have a good team. But however, Breece Hall, the Heisman candidate, well, I believe he should be a Heisman candidate. Breece Hall, the running back for Iowa State, is incredible. I believe he will have a great game on the ground and will be able to lead this team over West Virginia. Final score 37-31 over the Mountaineers. In the Big Ten, this is a game for Indiana, who's at number 12, to remain in contention for the Big 12 or the Big Ten championship, as they take on number 16, Wisconsin. Wisconsin has already been eliminated from the Big Ten championship contention. They are 2-1. They are number 16. But remember what I mentioned earlier with Ohio State. You have to play a minimum of 6 games to be able to qualify. The most Wisconsin will be able to play is 5 as long as none of their games get canceled, so they're already out. If Indiana loses this game, Ohio State can clinch as long as they play their last 2 games. Indiana loses this game, they can at best be 6-2. Ohio State can be 6-0 or 5-1 as long as they play their last 2 games. I don't see them losing to Michigan State at all. Michigan, don't think it's going to happen. If those games are played, the worst Ohio State can be will be 5-1. Indiana 6-2. The losses outweigh the wins. Ohio State will be in. This is Indiana's division to lose, in my opinion, because they control their own destiny. They just have to keep winning to ensure that even if Ohio State plays their last 2 games, 2 slip-ups from the Buckeyes could get Indiana in. But who really knows with what's going on this year? I'll take the Hoosiers to win this game over a heavily favored Wisconsin team. You know what? Now that I think of it, Michael Penix Jr. is out for Indiana. I don't know who their backup quarterback is. You know what? I'm going to flop that. Wisconsin will win. I completely forgot that Michael Penix is out for the rest of the year. So I'll take Wisconsin to win this game by 10. 27-17. Number 3, Clemson travels to Blacksburg to take on the 4-5 Virginia Tech Hokies. Trevor Lawrence trying to help the Clemson Tigers remain in the playoff race. 1 slip-up before the ACC championship against Notre Dame, and they are out. They cannot afford to lose this game, because this week is crucial for the ACC. If Clemson wins, they clinch their spot in the ACC title game, and we will see a rematch between the Tigers and the Fighting Irish. If Clemson loses, and the Miami Hurricanes win their game against Duke this weekend, Miami will face Notre Dame in the ACC championship. With the rescheduling and the eliminating of one final week, Notre Dame has already clinched their spot in the ACC title game. That is something I never thought I would ever say. It makes me happy on the inside. It makes me a little warm on the inside. And anyway, with the Irish, it's show up, wreck everything, and leave. But who really knows? I think even if Clemson does something this week, Miami will somehow screw it up. Clemson will get in either way, and then Clemson will beat Notre Dame. That'll set up a huge conversation of, do Notre Dame and Clemson both get in if Clemson wins the ACC championship? And I believe they do. I believe if you have 2 one-loss teams in Notre Dame and Clemson, and both of their losses are to one another, those losses somewhat cancel each other out. And then you're looking at who else they played. Both teams are undefeated against everyone else. Clemson and Notre Dame's both losses would be against one another. I think they both would get in at that point. If Clemson wins the ACC championship, Clemson would either be number 1 or number 2. Notre Dame would either be 3 or 4. Probably number 4. But I think both teams at that point would deserve to get in. Barring that neither of them slip up before that championship game. Notre Dame plays Syracuse this week. Could be a trap, because I know the way the Irish play, but I'll take Notre Dame to win that. I'll take Clemson to win this week. Trevor Lawrence will dominate. I say he'll throw for over 400 against the Hokies. Etienne will stumble a little bit. He won't have 100 on the ground. But all in all, I don't think Virginia Tech's defense is good enough to hang with Clemson. Knowing what Clemson did against Pitt last week, I'll take the Tigers to win this game 52-27. LSU, the defending national champions who have had a tragic season this year, sitting at 3-4, will host Mac Jones, Najee Harris, and Alabama. This will not be close. The Crimson Tide will go in and stomp a mud hole in Death Valley. LSU is not a good team this year. Bo Pelini was the worst thing that could have happened to LSU. That defense is tragic. They held their own against Texas A&M last week, only losing 20-7. But this one will not be close. Alabama will win 54-17 and ensure their spot in the SEC championship. And last but not least, in college football, we have an impromptu game between undefeated 9-0 BYU, ranked at number 13, and undefeated 9-0 Coastal Carolina, ranked at number 18. I love both of these teams. I believe both of them are underrated, as much as underrated can be said. Zach Wilson, the quarterback for BYU, is a true Heisman candidate. Not many people talk about him, unfortunately. Coastal Carolina's entire team deserves the Heisman. They have completely surprised me this year, and I know that I've talked about them before. I've always liked Coastal Carolina, probably just because of the colors and the teal turf. But the Chanticleers are for real this year, and so are the Cougars. I believe both of these teams are completely underrated. BYU not being in at least the top 10 surprises me. I believe they deserve way better than that. Coastal Carolina is an unbeaten, should be higher than a lot of these two-loss teams that are ranked ahead of them. This is a game that will show us who is truly underrated. Who is the most underrated team in college football? I will take BYU to win this game and possibly move into the top 6 to have a shot at getting into the college football playoff. The Cougars are favored by 10. I think it'll be closer than that just by the fact that it is at Coastal Carolina. Zach Wilson will have a great game against the Chanticleers defense. BYU will win this one in a shootout, 41-37 over Coastal Carolina, handing the Chants their first loss of the year and keeping the Cougars undefeated. Now, we move on into the NFL, which has just become a car wreck when it comes to COVID. We had Baltimore and Pittsburgh back on Wednesday after it was rescheduled 6 days later from Thanksgiving. And we have 2 matchups on Monday night and 1 on Tuesday. The entire NFL schedule has gone out of whack. So, let's start this off with the New Orleans Saints taking on the Atlanta Falcons. These two teams faced 2 weeks ago, in which the Saints won 24-9. Saints favored by 3. And seeing what the Falcons did against the Raiders last week, I have some hope in Atlanta. Atlanta's not completely out of contention for the NFC South crown. If the Falcons are somehow able to win out and the Saints lose out, the Falcons could steal that spot. I don't think that's going to happen. There's no chance that that's ever going to happen. But the offense of the Falcons, Ryan, Gurley, Ridley, possibly Julio if he's back, could tear apart this Saints defense. And you know what? I like the Falcons to win this game in an upset over the Saints. Give me the Falcons to win 26-24 over New Orleans. Next up, we have the Disappointment Bowl in the NFC North between the Chicago Bears and the visiting Detroit Lions. Surprisingly enough, both of these teams are still in playoff contention. The NFC is not as good this year as we thought they were going to be. The Bears are one game out from getting back into the playoff picture, currently sitting just outside. And the Lions, if they could win out somehow, now that they fired Matt Patricia, finally. Okay, I just want to talk about that real quick. Matt Patricia lasted way too long there. He should have been fired after last year. Why they kept him for so long, I have no idea. Anyway, I think Matt Stafford, now that he is not going to be under Matt Patricia, and the Detroit Lions are finally free from that, will have something to prove. Mitch Trubisky for the Bears will be starting his first game in a few weeks. But I think Detroit will win this game. I like the Lions to pull off the upset in Chicago and will take down the Bears 27-24. A matchup between two 8-3 teams in the AFC. The Cleveland Browns take on the Tennessee Titans. I just want to give a round of applause to the people who predicted the Browns and the Titans to be, at the bottom of the AFC this season. And both of them are currently sitting in the playoffs. I just want to acknowledge that. Many people thought that the Browns and the Titans were going to be two of the worst teams in the NFL this season. I've had my doubts. I've had my doubts about Cleveland especially. But what they've both done this year is astonishing. This is going to be a great matchup between two running games that dominate. You have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt on one side. You have Derrick Henry on the other side. The quarterbacks are just going to sit back and watch. I don't think neither of the quarterbacks will have over 200 yards this week. This will be a running matchup. But I believe just because they are at home, Tennessee will have the edge over Cleveland and will win this game in a great game, 28-20 over Cleveland. Next up, we have two division leaders in the NFC facing off this week as the 4-7 New York Giants take on the 8-3 Seattle Seahawks. I would say that this game won't be close if it wasn't for the fact that surprises happen often this year. The Giants have already made some close upset bids, including one against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where they just narrowly lost on the last second play against Tom Brady's Buccaneers on Monday night. The Giants can stick around for a little bit. I say it'll be close at half, but Russell Wilson will take this game by the reins. And now that Chris Carson is back, they finally have their run game back. Seattle will ultimately pull away and win this game 34-23. In Green Bay, we have the NFC North leading Packers hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. As for me, I kind of want the Packers to win this game, only because I just want the NFC least to finally keep losing some games and to finally look more clear. In my opinion, I kind of want Washington to win that division, but I don't think it's going to happen. It could happen. Anything could happen. But anyway, Aaron Rodgers, that's all I have to say. Aaron Rodgers. That's it. Just think about that. Aaron Rodgers. That's all you really need to know that this game will not be close. The Eagles' defense is a tragedy. They did look somewhat decent against the Seahawks last week on Monday night because they forced Seattle to kick 4 field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. That game was not as close as the score said, but the Packers will blow out Philly this week. I'll take Green Bay to win 37-17. Monday night, or not Monday night, my apologies, Sunday night, we have the 10-1 Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Denver Broncos. Denver probably doesn't even have a quarterback. I don't know. I haven't looked into that situation where they didn't have a quarterback at all last week. So I think the Chiefs are just going to steamroll the Broncos. This game will not be a contest whatsoever. Patrick Mahomes may even be benched in the fourth quarter, bring in a backup because it'll be that much of a blowout. Tyreek Hill, by the way, had a phenomenal week last week. Just saying. This Chiefs offense is way too much for anyone to handle, and the Chiefs will win this one 45-10. On Monday night, now we're into Monday night. The undefeated Steelers will host the 4-7 Washington football team. This could be a trap. I discussed it last week where I thought the only team that could have a chance of beating Pittsburgh would be Buffalo. But what I saw on Wednesday from Pittsburgh when they played Baltimore was not good. Pittsburgh does not look like the shiny object they once were. This could be a trap for a Washington win, because I will tell you, Washington is actually underrated. Their record doesn't give them credit for what they are good at. Their defense is great. If you've seen their defense play, you know what I'm talking about. And their offensive rookies with Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin are astounding. Alex Smith at quarterback was the best thing that could have happened to Washington. This team is on the up. Washington will be the future of the NFC least. Do I think they're going to win this game, though? No. I think Pittsburgh will win a close game against Washington. The final will be 23-20. Monday night, we will have the 5-6 San Francisco 49ers hosting the Buffalo Bills with a line that is completely even. This is a pick'em game, neither team favored, and that kind of surprises me. Now that this game is being played in Glendale, Arizona, because San Francisco got kicked from their home, they can no longer play in Santa Clara due to COVID restrictions. So, because of that, I'll actually take Buffalo. I think Josh Allen and the Buffalo offense will take down the San Francisco defense. Yet what the 49ers did last week against the Rams was good for the first half. Not so good in the second half, but they were able to pull out the upset bid. So I will take Buffalo to win this game 28-24. Speaking of which, now that I just remember, I forgot to talk about the Rams. Because the Rams are facing the Cardinals this week. My Rams. How could I forget about my Rams? This will be a great matchup because this is a matchup for position in the NFC West. The Rams, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks, all three fighting for the NFC West crown, and it's still close. All of these teams currently sitting with playoff spots. This is a huge matchup for both sides. I think it'll come down to, can the Rams defense put great pressure on Kyler Murray? Kyler Murray is not good under pressure. He can scramble, he can run, but he can't run all game. And that is the big thing that Sean McVay has been able to do against Arizona. Sean McVay is 6-0 against the Cardinals during his tenure with the Rams. And that is because he has been able to put pressure on the quarterback. Jared Goff, not so good. Goff has to have an average game this week if the Rams want a shot. Jared Goff has to at least look average. I think that might be able to happen, but I'm going to go more with the heart and say the Rams win this game close. 3-point win, 27-24. And now to Tuesday Night Football. Tuesday night, that's so weird. The Baltimore Ravens at 6-5 will host the 3-8 Dallas Cowboys. First off, I'm astonished that Baltimore hasn't been penalized for anything for what they have done with COVID, having their game moved back 6 days, while other teams who have had COVID situations worse have been forced to play. Just look at Denver. Lost all 4 of their quarterbacks and had to start a wide receiver at quarterback. Nope, no postponement, no game moved back, no anything. They still had to play. I think Baltimore will win this game if Lamar Jackson is back. It'll be a close game. Dallas's defense is just that bad. I'll take Baltimore to win 30-26. So, that just about wraps it up. I'd like to thank you for joining me once again here on Intentional Grounding. It has been a pleasure. And I'd like to say again, I'd like you to go and listen to all of the other podcasts that are on this Dragon's Den network. They all put a lot of time and effort into what they do, and they're all great to listen to. So, for the Dragon's Den Network, and for Intentional Grounding, I'm the Wild Irishman. And as always, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and go Irish.